Oh, hey there. You may have seen our worker placement video, and that video was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun. And you guys really seemed to dig it, so I figured why not do it again? Only this time, as far as I'm concerned, the next most interesting mechanic to explore would be that of the game mechanic that made me into a hardcore board game fan and collector. Is the reason we built this table and is the reason we started a YouTube channel. And that is deck building games. So, no joke, I started getting serious about board games around the same time that my buddy CJ got Dominion. Looking for more of the same, I wound up getting Legendary, and I was hooked. From there, I branched out into other deck building games, and eventually, other kinds of board games. But it all started with deck builders. So once again, let's talk about a little history. Deck building is a subset of pool building, where players have a collection of cards or tokens or dice that provide actions or resources. Each turn, players draw a certain amount of these cards, tokens, or dice, and use them to add or possibly remove cards, tokens, or dice from their collection, doing their best to manage said pool. See, these pools are like little engines, and if you have all the right parts in said engine, you'll be churning out victory points like crazy. For this video, however, we're only concerned with the subset of deck building, which means cards. Now this might sound like a collectible card game like Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh!, but you can get that money-sucking crap out of my face, okay? There are two big differences between collectible card games and deck building games. First, deck building games don't have booster packs. When you buy a deck building game, you know going in exactly what you're getting. Everyone's on the same footing. You don't even need your own collection. If a friend has the game, then you have all you need to play. Collectible card games, on the other hand, have booster packs, which for $3 or $4 a pop will give you a small, random amount of cards from that particular booster pack set, and they will just nickel and dime you to death. Not to mention, if you have the cash, you can individually buy all the most powerful cards, making the game more pay to win. And the second difference, and possibly bigger difference, with collectible card games, you build your deck before the game. With deck builders, you build your deck during the game. I found it hard to believe, but deck building games apparently originated with Dominion when it was released in 2008. Dominion's considered the granddaddy of deck builders, and it is still the most efficient design I've encountered. Every player starts with 10 cards. Some are money that you can use to buy more cards, others are cards worth points at the end of the game, but do nothing in gameplay. Among cards that are worth more money and more points, there are cards that provide actions that allow players to manage their decks, draw more cards, or slow their opponents down. The Intrigue expansion is not standalone, meaning you can't play the game without owning the base game of Dominion, but it is highly recommended. It comes with a whole slew of additional cards that all do different, intriguing things. The Masters of Boredom are no strangers to low-hanging fruit, like the ones in my pants. Surprisingly, Resident Evil the deck building game, which came out in 2010, is just Dominion with monsters to fight. That's literally all it is. The problem is that it effectively doubles or even triples the length of the game, because you need stronger weapons and ammo to kill zombies and lickers, but you'll want to level up, so you try to kill some zombies with your standard weapons, and you end up running into a Ouroboros with your face, and you've just wasted your turn. You'll need to waste more turns healing or dying. The game is fun for the first hour, but after that, it's a slog. Ascension came out in 2010 as well, but it's not a slog. Ascension is a deck builder where you have two different currencies: runes, which allow you to buy new cards, and power, which allows you to defeat monsters for honor, also known as, say it with me now, victory points. Now, unlike Dominion, the cards you can buy or fight are not all available all the time. Instead, there's a center row, where only 6 cards can be bought or fought at any given time, which sort of forces players to ask themselves if they want to specialize. because you can get and have all the runes and buy the most powerful cards. But if the center row is all monsters, you'll be sitting there fuming for a couple of turns while you wait for something to buy to show up. You're never without options though. There's always mystics and heavy infantry worth 1 point apiece. Big bucks. And vice versa for power. If there's nothing to fight in the center row, you can always punch the cultist. I call him the Nazi because he's got a very punchable face. Ascension Storm of Souls came out in 2011, and like most expansions for Ascension, it's standalone. You get a full game in this box, which is magnificent. Or you can combine it with the base game and have an Ascension salad. Anyway, Storm of Souls introduces 2 new mechanics to the mix. Events, which provide some sort of permanent effect until the event is replaced with a new one, which may never happen, and trophies, which give monsters a function after they've been defeated. Now you can use the trophy from killing said monster to provide some additional bonus when you want it. Ascension Rise of Vigil came out in 2014. It is also standalone, but I also have the expansion to this game, Ascension Darkness Unleashed. This features energy shards that act as free cards that you can use to energize card abilities. As it turns out though, this slows down the gameplay somewhat, and the energize abilities just aren't all that exciting. This is the weakest of the expansions that I've played. Ascension X War of Shadows came out in 2016, also standalone, and this introduces light and dark mechanics, making certain cards stronger when the balance of available cards in the center row shifts one way or the other. It also features dual cost cards that require both runes and power, again disincentivizing specialization. Ascension Gift of the Elements from 2017, also standalone, now includes the Empower mechanic, allowing you to trash less powerful cards to gain better ones, and the Infest mechanic, allowing you to add useless cards to your opponent's decks, although they may find a use for them after all. And finally, events that can be transformed into powerful heroes for your deck, provided you can pay the cost. You know, I'm not sure, but I think I might like the Ascension games. Each and every single game we've played is close, often the winner wins by just 1 to 3 points, but luck does play as much a hand as your decisions. If the cards you need just never show up, there's not a lot you can do. Still, I can't recall playing any of these and not having fun. Eminent Domain came out in 2011, and this was the first real twist on deck builders that I came across. First, instead of buying cards, you will gain a card every turn, as you choose one of 5 basic roles. Each card can be played at the start of your turn to optionally do its listed action, but when you choose a role, as the leader you get an additional benefit, and you and all other players may boost that role by laying down extra copies of that same card from your hand. So the more cards of that kind you have, the stronger that role can get for you. This game requires careful deck management to get the most out of not just your turn, but everyone's. So there's a great depth to Eminent Domain, but it just doesn't have the kind of sexy excitement that would bring it to the table more often. The perfect example? Look at this box! It's pretty, but there's nothing going on. It's not terribly exciting. Maybe if I grab the Exotica expansion? 3012 came out... Well, wait. Guess. I want you to guess. Clever you. It was 2012. How did you figure that out? Anyway, it's a post-apocalyptic hellscape where people have reverted to cavemen, and I'm not talking about the game's theme, that's just the game designer's office. I got this on clearance, and I still feel ripped off. 3012 has some interesting ideas, but it utterly fails to capitalize on any of them, and the encounters have a habit of making an already long game interminable. Hard pass. DC Comics deck building game came out in 2012, the same year as a similar Marvel-themed game, but I'm doing this one first for reasons that will become clear. DC deck building is Ascension, but even simpler. Again, you've got this center row, but now there's just one currency, power. You use it to buy powers and equipment, and, strangely, villains. I guess you hit them so hard they switch sides? all in an effort to defeat all the supervillains in the supervillain pile, and whoever has the most points wins. Not bad by itself, but it pales in comparison to the next entry. Legendary is that Marvel game I was talking about that also came out in 2012. You pick 5 or 6 Marvel heroes, shuffle their cards together to make a hero deck. You pick a mastermind, a number of villains and henchmen based on how many people are playing, and the mastermind's particular scheme, and you begin play. Players can buy hero cards to improve their deck from the HQ, but like Ascension, are limited to the 5 cards available. Players need to spend 2 currencies, recruit points to buy cards, and attack points to fight villains. And you'll need to fight villains pretty regularly, because a new one enters the city pretty much every turn. And when they don't, it's usually because the mastermind themselves has chosen to attack the players or the city. Every scheme is different, having a different game over condition for how the mastermind wins, but if the players can defeat the mastermind 4 times before that happens, the players win. Do you understand yet why this game is so much better than DC deck building game? It tells a story every time, and it's a very, very different story every time, and it is so much fun. It's not a perfect game. While you need to work together if you want to succeed, Legendary crowns only one winner, the player who earned the most points between beating villains and rescuing bystanders. And this can lead to suboptimal plays, like buying a card that would really be better in someone else's deck simply because you wanted more attack points, or because you didn't want them to have it. Also, the admin is a bit exhausting, with setup and teardown of this game taking about 10 minutes each if you want everything neatly sorted. And you will, because this game has more expansions than CJ has illegitimate children. Which is true, because he has 0. Or so he says. Speaking of expansions, there's Dark City, Civil War, Secret Wars 1 and 2, Captain America's 75th Anniversary, Deadpool, Fantastic Four, Guardians of the Galaxy, Paint the Town Red, Noir, Spider-Man Homecoming, Champions, and those are just the ones I have. I'm only missing X-Men, for now. And then there's Legendary Villains and its expansion, Fear Itself, which released in 2014 and 2015 respectively. And the difference in gameplay, aside from the fact that you're playing now as the bad guys, trying to stop the good guys from stopping you, is that the game becomes a lot less cooperative. A lot of the abilities are designed to help you and hurt the other players, which makes for an occasionally hilarious experience. Oh, we're not done yet. Not by a long shot. We gotta talk about the other standalone games like Legendary Encounters Alien, released in 2014. Whereas Superhero Legendary was a balanced fight of good versus evil, this game is about you trying to survive while your friends get murdered, or worse, come back as an alien and actively play against their surviving players. It is a thrillingly intense experience, and I need this to come back to the table more often. And I also need to get my hands on the expansion. The one criticism I have is that they used artwork instead of stills from the movies, but at least the artwork is okay. The game that really screws the art thing up is Legendary Encounters Firefly, released in 2016. Some of this art is just plain ugly, and this game was crying out for actual still images. Still, the game itself is okay, but the Bundan who wrote the manual put instructions for beginners in the back of the book. Also, and this kills me, when you decide to play as a character, you don't actually get to use that character's cards in the game, which sounded like a fat load of horse crap to me, so we use house rules, allowing each player to buy their own character's cards in their own little mini-market. But if we gotta use house rules to get more enjoyment out of the game, that doesn't say much for the game. Then there's the Legendary standalone games that adhere more closely to the original game's playstyle, like Legendary Big Trouble in Little China, released in 2016. Again, using art instead of stills. Like, what the hell, Upper Deck? You could manage it for Spider-Man Homecoming, but not a 30-year-old license? Still, the game is fun and a hoot for fans of the movie. And then there's Legendary Buffy the Vampire Slayer from 2017. A brilliant fit, since she's a superhero herself. This features an intriguing light/dark system not quite like Ascension X, War of Shadows system, but just as important. And finally, someone wised up and got permission to use actual stills! I wish I could impress how much this adds to a game that's based on a theme from a visual medium. No more crappy art stand-ins, Upper Deck, please. I don't own the Legendary Encounters Predator game, and though I plan to get it eventually, I hear it's not quite as good as Alien was. And finally, you'd think we'd be done, and you'd be wrong. Because there are actual fan-made versions of Legendary cards floating out there on the internet, all sorts of new heroes, villains, masterminds, schemes, and there are even a couple of complete games floating around. And I was foolhardy enough to print up 2 of them. The first is Legendary Doctor Who. Stephen Cawley, aka Svenmother, put this together, and the first thing you'll probably note is that it is staggeringly complete. You will find every single Doctor and Companion has their own hero deck. But I just need Rose Tyler. Nobody else. Oh, and 10th Doctor David Tennant, but I figured that was a given. I'm gonna make them kiss. Oh, a 3-way kiss? Don't mind if I do! Oh, Deadpool! Is that a chimichanga in your pocket? No, I'm happy to. It's an erection. The game is actually quite difficult compared to base Legendary, but I can't deny it's fun. Everyone plays differently enough that I'm jazzed to try new Doctors and Companions every time you play. But I'll always come back to Rose and Tennant. Always. And then there's Legendary Star Wars, created by Ty Rosenbaum, aka Iron Syndicate. All your favorite Star Wars characters and villains, and better yet, this set pretends the prequels never happened! Well, alright, there's a Darth Maul villain card, and some events are mentioned in text, but that's it. No Jar Jar. Well, okay, he's here too, but he's being elbowed in the face, and that's acceptable. The game is quite good, but unlike Legendary Doctor Who, as long as you have a Jedi in your hero deck somewhere, this game seems a bit easier than base Legendary. The Force abilities are strong, especially if you stack them. Still, this is incredibly fun, and I recommend it to any Star Wars fan, but not the crappy fans whining about girls having Jedi powers. They can suck on a bile popsicle. Mind you, these fan-made games use intellectual property they do not own, and I'd be highly surprised if all of the art used was legally obtained as well. So if you want to play these, print and cut them yourself. Buying or selling a set is absolutely illegal. So, I've covered a lot of deck building games, but the fact of the matter is we've only gotten through about half of my collection, and those are the games that I've played. There's still a couple of deck building games in my pile of shame that haven't been touched yet. So, we're going to stop here, but I'll be back with Deck Building Part 2 coming soon. The first game on that list will be Trains from 2012, so look forward to that. In the meanwhile, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.
Da 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 da! Guess what? You've leveled up and you get to choose a new materia to put in your weapon. Choose this one, perhaps this one, or this one.